This is Christopher John Bjerknes. It is May 18th, 2025. There's a big brouhaha going on today because Trump reposted something calling for a military tribunal of Barack Obama. This is a repetition of something he did a year ago and something he's been doing for a long time, calling for military tribunals of Liz Cheney, etc. But there are a lot of ulterior motives for all this, and I'm going to explain the background behind this. I've been covering Obama very publicly since 2006, and you're going to note that this is centering around things other than Obama and Trump's connections to the bankers. We've seen Trump recently blasting the neocons and the wars for Israel. He doesn't specify they're for Israel. He simply specifies that they're related to the neocons. And he doesn't talk too much about the bankers. And there are people talking about the Fed and how we need reforms in the Fed, but that's just so that there will be committee hearings in the Congress so that they can slip in their central bank digital currency and make all other kinds of changes which will benefit them. As I've explained, they did this same thing back in 1907. They set up all kinds of things to react to the banker scandals then, but it was just to implement the next phase of the bankers' plans, as happened under Paul Warburg in 1913 when they set up the Federal Reserve. And now they want to transition into something more global and something more digital. So we're being set up for all that. And I want to bring some attention back to Goldman Sachs and the bankers and the subprime mortgage crisis that happened in 2007, 2008, because I was covering it at the time. I predicted that they would try to get Obama elected so that he could issue a bunch of banker bailouts. And I demonstrated all of Obama's connections to Goldman Sachs through his opponents in the political campaigns, who effectively took a dive so that this unknown guy, Barack Obama, could get elected. And I pointed out how he skyrocketed into becoming the senator from Illinois when the banker, Patrick Fitzgerald, stepped down. And then he ran against, in the Democratic primary, Blair Hall, who was affiliated at one time, had a relationship that I'll explain to Goldman Sachs. And Blair Hall then had a messy divorce scandal come out in the press, so he dropped out, and Barack Obama won the Democratic primary. And then we had the exact same model replayed with Jack Ryan, who was the Republican nominee for Senate, who had a messy divorce scandal with his wife, who was a Star Trek actress. I think her name's Jerry Ryan, a very attractive woman. And that messy divorce scandal ruined Jack Ryan's campaign. So then I think they helicoptered in Alan Keyes, who was sponsored by William Kristol, Bill Kristol, the Trotsky, son of the Trotskyite neoconservative Irving Kristol. And Alan Keyes promptly made a complete ass out of himself again and again. And Obama cleaned up and got shoehorned into the Illinois Senate. And he was propped up and lauded by Larry King, as I noted at the time. And I realized that he was being elevated so he could eventually run for Senate, for the presidential campaign in 2008. And I predicted all that. And then in 2008, I said that they were going to have banker bailouts and banking reform committees in the Congress, as eventually happened, exactly as I predicted, and that they wanted to get Obama into power, and he was put into the position to do all this by a series of these Goldman Sachs affiliated people. And then very similar things happened to get him to run against McCain and Sarah Palin, and how they flubbed their campaign to get Barack Obama into office. I hope I'm remembering all this history correctly. It was quite some time ago, but I covered it very thoroughly at the time. And I'll get it right because I have my blog posts dated from that period that will explain all this. And I put all this out there. I made a couple of short videos explaining all this. Jeff Rentz posted the first one, so it reached hundreds of thousands or millions of people. I don't remember. But it exploded, and then people started copying me, plagiarizing it without giving me credit, as so typically happens. But I was the one who unpacked and revealed all of these connections to Goldman Sachs and the bankers in the subprime mortgage crisis, and how Barack Obama was lifted on these golden puppet strings by the bankers, and how all these campaigns running against him failed again and again and had direct ties to the bankers, and how Fitzgerald stepping down, Peter Fitzgerald was the son of a famous banker and was a banker himself, that created the opportunity for all this to happen and to uplift Obama from nowhere into the presidency. So I've been covering this continually since then. And what I want to emphasize is the hell with military tribunals. Why don't we have investigations of all these relationships and connections to Goldman Sachs and to the bankers, not only in terms of getting Obama elected, but in terms of the Trump administration. We hear Stephen Bannon talking about the Zionists, etc. He was close to Goldman Sachs. Why doesn't he disclose everything he knows about the bankers? Stephen Mnuchin is another one who was in the Trump administration, who was tied to Goldman Sachs and the bankers. So let's get into all these people and start assessing all these facts, and maybe we can provoke some congressional hearings and federal investigations into what's been going on. Let's not just expose the Zionists. Let's expose the bankers who empower the Zionists with all of their money and all of their campaign contributions. We hear a lot about Jeffrey Epstein, but let's look at who actually gets people elected. Epstein puts the pressure on them. The Mossad Epstein blackmail rings have been going on for centuries. The book Philip Drew, Administrator, was talking about this, and he helped to get his boy Woodrow Wilson in because Wilson had a sex scandal in his past, as I've written about and explained many times. So I tweeted about this earlier today, and I want to get also into the idea that this is a setup to get the Democrats to go along with the idea of abandoning the 22nd Amendment and allowing Trump to run for a third term. This is bait for the idea that Obama can be put in. If Trump is able to run for a third term in violation of the Constitution, then Obama has equal right to do so, and right in quotes. So they're setting it up to lure Democrats into going along with the idea to allow Trump to run for a third term so that then Barack Obama can also run for a third term, believing that Barack Obama will have an easy time defeating Trump because Trump is a very weak candidate who was polling poorly against a corpse named Joe Biden, and who had an easy time defeating the moronic Kamala Harris. He would not have such an easy time defeating Barack Obama. But who wins in either event? The bankers win. Goldman Sachs wins. Barack Obama was their man, and Donald Trump was their man. So this could be setting all this up and baiting the Democrats into allowing for Trump to run for a third term so that Barack Obama can do likewise. But either way, the American people are going to lose. So I'm going to show how corrupt the process was that got Barack Obama into power, how he corruptly issued the bankers' bailouts. I was shouting about this at the time and trying to prevent it. And there's been no repercussions for any of these bankers who screwed Americans very hardly and led to a terrible economic crisis in 2008. They got bailed out. They got their money. No matter what happens, they come out smelling like a rose, and all of us pay the price for their crimes by bailing them out with federal funds that we have to pay with our taxes. And the national debt keeps going up, and we have to keep servicing that debt, and it's getting to be ridiculous. So today I tweeted out, if Trump can run a third time, then so too can Obama, who would pose a major challenge to Trump. Trump is threatening Obama and should be impeached for abuse of power. So this appears to be a move by Trump to head off a third-term Obama run, but it's also bait to the Democrats to get them to go along with the idea so that we can have this cage match between Trump and Obama, where the only winner will be the Zionists and the bankers. And the Zionists and the bankers were both behind Obama and Trump. Obama was affiliated with David Axelrod and Rahm Emanuel and the Pritzkers and all kinds of big Jewish money in Chicago, and the bankers, Goldman Sachs. It's amazing, if it's all coincidence, how people affiliated at one time or another with Goldman Sachs in one way or another nosedived in their campaigns to miraculously get Obama eventually into the White House, but first into the Illinois Senate seat. So I was covering all that in videos and interviews and on my blog, jewishlacism.blogspot.com. It is still all archived in my jewishlacism.blogspot.com archive, which is on archive.org. And also in the Wayback Machines, you can find all of my original blog posts when they were originally posted if you search for jewishlacism.blogspot.com on the Wayback Machine. So before it was happening and as it was going on, I was talking about the bailed out Goldman, how Goldman Sachs was bailed out, and the Jewish bankers are at it again. Look forward to banking reform hearings in the Congress. And I was talking about all this back in October of 2008 and earlier, as I'll show you. Witness Obama's support of the Jewish banker bailout and conflict of interest with Goldman Sachs. Barack Obama likes to control others and uses that control to do harm. This was my psychological profile on Barack Obama back on November 5th, 2008, where I wrote about how he's a psychopathic personality. He likes to lie, and he has an eagerness to deceive those who trust in him and mislead those who trust in him in ways that hurt them. And I predicted everything that would come about in his campaign. It is all too improbable to be the accidents of fate. Witness the power Jews have over our political process. They pick a puppet, and behold, miracles arise, and the puppet wins. Note that lunatic John McCain defeated more able men and then handed over the election to Obama. Though not as bizarre as the Illinois Senate race, we again see events similar to Dean's self-destruction, Kerry's self-destruction, etc., which handed over the election of the Jews' pick for president, Barack Obama. It has often been said that Republicans bring us depression and Democrats bring us world wars. Barack Obama is another Woodrow Wilson, another FDR, following the depression of Republican Zionist George Bush. And I went over and I broke down all the things that were coming. And then I did a blog post about the amazing links between Barack Obama and Goldman Sachs. And I saw all this unfolding in 2006. I had a friend who was involved with the Republican race for Senate in 2006. That friend brought me into one of the Republicans' meetings where there was a fight going on between Jack Ryan and what was happening as the scandal was unfolding with his messy, scandalous relationship with his wife. I think her name was Jeri Ryan. She was the actress in Star Trek. So I saw firsthand what was going on, and I understood what was going on, and I exposed what was going on my blog at the time. And a lot of this had to do with people who were in some way connected, either directly or indirectly, with Goldman Sachs. So this was November 24th, 2008, I believe, or 2000, sometime around November 23rd of 2008. Political commentators ranging from David Duke to Lou Dobbs have noted the connections of such men as Henry Paulson, Neil Kashkari, Warren Buffett, Robert Rubin, and others to Goldman Sachs, Barack Obama, and the banker bailouts. I found that the connections go further back between Obama and Goldman Sachs than the presidential race and banker bailouts, which theft Obama supported. For quite some time, I have been writing about the truly bizarre Illinois race to fill Fitzgerald's U.S. Senate seat, which after many twists and turns ultimately resulted in Barack Obama's senatorial victory. I predicted that Obama had skeletons in his closet and pointed out that there was much to be learned from the Senate race, which catapulted Barack Obama to fame and made him the darling of the media, Jews like Larry King, long before he announced that he would run for president. In, among others, the following blogs. You can see I was talking about this in October of 2006, Barack Obama's amazing good luck, Democrats debate, April 27th, 2007, and several other posts throughout 2007 and into 2008. As I noted long ago, and this was long ago, this was also in 2008 when I said that, the Republicans and Democrats appeared to make a concerted and coordinated effort to put Obama into office. I will now elaborate on the many ties between Obama and Goldman Sachs, his amazing victories against all odds, his financing, the collapse of his rivals' campaigns, etc. Obama first ran in the Democratic primary of the U.S. Senate seat, vacated by Peter Fitzgerald, the son of a wealthy banker who inexplicably decided not to run for re-election, perhaps to make way for Obama. The frontrunner in the Democratic primary race was the fabulously wealthy Blair Hall. Blair Hall had a substantial lead over Obama in the polls. Blair Hall sold his interest in the Hall Group to Goldman Sachs and Company in 1999. Here's a Wikipedia page on Blair Hall. Hall founded Hall Trading Company in 1985 and served as the firm's chairman and chief executive officer before selling it to Goldman Sachs in 1999 for $531 million, which was quite a bit of money back then. Hall's campaign fell apart when the press learned that there might be issues involving his former wife in their divorce proceedings, which would embarrass Hall. The New York Times reports that Axelrod is known for operating in this gray area, part idealist, part hired muscle. It is difficult to discuss Axelrod in certain circles in Chicago without, believe that's David Axelrod, who was a opinion writer for one of the major Chicago newspapers. Without them, and got involved with Obama, heavily involved with Obama. Without the matter of the Blair Hall divorce papers coming up, as the 2004 Senate primary neared, it was clear that it was a contrast between two people, the millionaire liberal Hall, who was leading in the polls, and Obama, who had built an impressive grassroots campaign. About a month before the vote, the Chicago Tribune revealed near the bottom of a long profile of Hall that during divorce proceedings, Hall's second wife filed for an order of protection. In the following few days, the matter erupted into a full-fledged scandal that ended up destroying the Hall campaign and handing Obama an easy primary victory. So we have a guy who sold his business to Goldman Sachs, whose campaign took a nosedive, so that Obama, and then Obama was elevated and became the front runner, the unlikely Obama who was being obliterated by Hall. What are the odds of that? Imagine that. And we have Axelrod promoting all this in the press, who has been a strong supporter of Obama for decades now. The Tribune reporter who wrote the original piece later acknowledged in print that the Obama camp had worked aggressively behind the scenes to push the story. But there are those in Chicago who believe that Axelrod had an even more significant role, that he leaked the initial story. They wrote that before signing on with Obama, Axelrod interviewed with Hall. They also point out that Obama's TV ad campaign started at almost the same time. Axelrod swears up and down that we had nothing to do with it and that the campaign's television ad schedule was long planned. The aura grows up around you and people assume everything emanates from you. David Axelrod is a Zionist Jew. This is me speaking back in 2008. He helped Obama defeat Hillary Clinton, who is now being talked about as Obama's likely pick for Secretary of State. Bill Richardson has been appointed as Obama's Commerce Secretary. It is interesting that both ran against Obama in the presidential primary and, in effect, helped Obama beat John Edwards and are now going to be in Obama's cabinet. They will very often crowd the field with candidates who act as spoiler candidates. So these Clinton and Richardson ran as to crowd the field and serve as spoiler candidates so that Obama could defeat Edwards in the primary. I believe the Jews did not want Hillary to win because she would make an unpopular and divisive president, and that they wanted a popular president in order to win support for more Jewish wars and for the banker bailouts, as I was saying at the time. So we find that Obama's competition for the Democratic primary seat in the Senate race, Blair Hall, was taken out of the race by a scandal appearing on the pages of the Chicago Tribune. Blair Hall sold his interest in his company to Goldman Sachs. The scandal involved divorce proceedings. Make note of these facts because exactly the same thing happened with Obama's next competitor, Jack Ryan, and I was a personal witness to what was going on with that. Jack Ryan won the Republican primary for U.S. Senate in Illinois. The Chicago Tribune pushed to gain access to his divorce proceedings, which allegedly contained scandalous information that would ruin Ryan's campaign. Jack Ryan was at one time a partner at Goldman Sachs. He dropped out of the race. So Jack Ryan. In 2000, he retired as an active partner at Goldman Sachs to teach at Hales Franciscan High School, a private Catholic high school in Chicago's Brownsville neighborhood. Now imagine that. Exactly the same model plays out. Blair Hall gets destroyed by a scandal involving his wife, and he gets taken out of the Democratic primary so that Barack Obama can become the nominee for the Democratic Party to run against the nominee for the Republican Party, Jack Ryan, who is also affiliated at one time with Goldman Sachs, who gets taken out of the race by a scandal involving his wife. Imagine that. What are the odds? When Ryan dropped out of the race, the Republican Party abandoned all of the Illinois candidates for Senate. There were quite a few who petitioned to replace Ryan and instead flew in the known loser and flake Alan Keyes, an old friend of the Zionist Jew William Kristol, whose dad was one of the founders of neoconservatism and was a Trotskyite Zionist Jew, to take Ryan's place as the Republican opposition to Obama. Keyes missed few opportunities to make an ass of himself, and Obama won handily. So we have Zionist Jews helping Obama to get into office by putting up an opposition candidate who was a farce, who had to be helicoptered in from out of state to make an ass out of himself to guarantee that Obama would win. And the Republican Party, and I think the governor at the time was a Republican, and he had the power to appoint whomever he wanted to replace Ryan. That may not be correct. That's just my recollection of it all. But anyway, they got Keyes in, who essentially threw the race by being an ass clown. In the presidential primaries, John Edwards lost in a crowded field. Having a crowded field made the black vote a decisive factor for Obama's win. So they set this up with Clinton and others to crowd the field as spoilers so that Obama could get elected. The press jumped on Edwards and Clinton, but never laid a hand on Obama. They ensured Obama's victory, as did the cluttered field. Those who helped Obama defeat Edwards are now receiving cabinet posts in the Republican presidential primary. The press and Mike Huckabee took out Mitt Romney, the candidate most likely to defeat Obama, and greased the way for John McCain, an old and deranged fool. Huckabee, like William Kristol, now appears on Fox News. William Kristol set up Sarah Palin to run with McCain as his vice presidential running mate. Like Kristol's old friend, Alan Keyes, Palin promptly and perpetually made an ass of herself, ensuring Obama the victory. All these people affiliated with Zionists and bankers through their campaign so that Obama could get elected. I have only just scratched the surface of the interconnections and parallels between races, the Senate and the presidential races. For example, Zionist Jew George Soros funded Obama's senatorial campaign. Obama's otherwise impossible rise to the Oval Office can only be understood by examining his senatorial race and his connections to Jewry, in particular to the Jewish financiers who recently richly rewarded themselves at taxpayer expense with Obama's help. Obama is a lying, deceitful puppet of the Jews. He is not qualified to be president and does not know what to do as president other than what his Jewish advisors tell him to do. He's the one who set up Ukraine, screwed him so badly in 2014, did nothing to stop Putin, ensured that nothing would be done to stop Putin from taking Crimea and setting up an insurgency in Donbass that led to the calamity we face today. And he allowed Putin to move into the Arctic completely without opposition. He is an actor who pretends to be authoritative and confident, but it is just an act and a script. Alone, he is nothing in the public realm. He is an actor placed on the stage to read off the Jewish script for our ruin. The question naturally arises, why did the Jewish investors so heavily, why did the Jews invest so heavily in Obama and go to such tortuous lengths to get him elected president? I believe it is because they know that he is a psychopath who will push the button on command and start a nuclear third world war. I told you, let's see. Uh, I was talking back then about the Arabs making a backroom deal with the Israelis to destroy Iran. This was in 2008. We just saw Trump doing this as well. I have been exposing all this for decades. For decades, I alone have been exposing all this. I was talking in 2006 how the House of Saud was crypto Jewish and how they were going to use the Arab Sunnis to quash the Iranian Shia. Believing that the Jews will give the Palestinians a state if the Arabs help the Jews to persuade the Americans to help the Israelis to destroy Persian Shia, Jewish deceit often follows a convoluted path, like Obama's improbable path to the Senate and then White House, strewn with the politically fallen bodies of those with links of one kind or another to Goldman Sachs. Obama is a puppet of the Jews, and they want him and the Arabs to support an attack on Iran. The Jews have Obama's and the Saudis' support. I was probably the leading voice who helped prevent all this. I'm certain the CIA and the FBI were listening to what I was saying, and it was the CIA who prevented an attack from Iran by saying that the presidents were being fed faulty intelligence information and that there was, in fact, no need to attack Iran. And I was talking about this back in 2006 very publicly, and people would think I was confused and talking about Iraq when I was instead referring to Iran. So as I said, I did 2 videos on all this history of Obama and the bankers and how he got into office. Of course, they were censored off the web. Jeff Rentz helped me out by posting part 1. He caught a lot of flack for that. And I broke down all this history, and then people started plagiarizing it from me without mentioning my name. But if you want to read this, I knew that this would be censored, so I put up transcripts of the video. Video unavailable. Probably shouldn't have done that, but I'll get us back to where we need to be. So first, I gave a brief recap of part 1, the Obama and the bankers, and I gave references to gold and silver and how they stole the gold and silver from the Egyptians and how they were setting up to steal the gold and silver from the Americans before they departed America, in the same way that they stole the gold and silver from the Egyptians when they departed Egypt. I talked about Fitzgerald and how he was a banker and how he paved the way for Obama by deciding not to run. I talked about Blair Hall, his ties to Goldman Sachs, and how his divorce proceedings scandals were put in the Chicago Tribune by David Axelrod, who denied any affiliation with the campaign for doing that as a motivation. I talked about Jack Ryan, affiliated with Goldman Sachs. and how his divorce proceedings and their being made public destroyed his campaign, so that Obama had an easy victory for U.S. Senate when he would have lost to Jack Ryan. I talked about how the Republican Party helicoptered in Alan Keyes to replace Obama, how he was a friend, an old friend of William Kristol, and how he embarrassed himself to hand Obama an easy victory. I talked about how Bill Kristol supported Christian Zionist Sarah Palin to be McCain's running mate, which essentially sabotaged McCain's campaign, how Palin embarrassed himself so that Obama had an easy victory. I talked about how Goldman Sachs was the leading contributor to Obama's presidential campaign. Now, isn't that telling? How all these Obama people, these Goldman Sachs people may have taken a fall, or how miraculously coincidental was their fall to hand Obama an easy victory. And Obama's biggest campaign contributor at the time was Goldman Sachs. And how he was supported by other banking institutions and by Wall Street, and then he gave the banker bailout. Obama has since stolen trillions of taxpayer dollars and given them to the Jews. And then I listed, this is another thing that Adam Green has copied from me in my book, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein, in videos I've done all over my blog. I listed these quotes from Deuteronomy, proving that usury was a Jewish campaign long before, centuries before Christianity emerged, and they tried to scapegoat Christians for usury when in fact it was the Jews who stated in Deuteronomy that they would utilize usury to take over the world. And I quoted Deuteronomy 15:6, Deuteronomy 23:19-20, and Deuteronomy 28:12-13 to that effect. I repeatedly quoted Deuteronomy 7:6 about how they call themselves the chosen people and are racists taking over the world. I discussed Rahm Emanuel, chief of staff from Obama, the Chicago Jewish investment banker, David Axelrod, Jewish senior advisor to the president, Stephen Friedman, Jewish chairman of the United States President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board, former chairman of Goldman Sachs, Robert Rubin, Jewish economic advisor to Obama, once co-chairman and co-senior partner of Goldman Sachs. Are you seeing the pattern emerging? Former U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Paulson, Secretary of the Treasury when Obama took office. Former CEO of Goldman Sachs, supported by Obama. Neel Kashkari, Interim Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, former Vice President at Goldman Sachs. Warren Buffett, strong supporter and friend of Obama, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, which invested in Goldman Sachs. Paul Volcker, chairman of the Economic Recovery Advisory Board. Worked for Chase Manhattan, worked for, I guess it's Jacob Rothschild, Wolfenson and Son and Company. Wolfenson, Son and Company, which was headed by Jew James D. Wolfensohn, who was to become president of the World Banker. Timothy Geithner, Jewish, protege of Larry Summers, and Robert Rubin, Jewish. I neglected to add Mark Peterson to the video. Mark Peterson, chief of staff at Treasury for the Jewish lobbyist Timothy Geithner, former Goldman Sachs lobbyist. Larry Summers, Jewish, director of the White House National Economic Council. Peter Orszag, Jewish, director of the Office of Management and Budget. Joseph Stiglitz, Jewish. Economic advisor to Obama, Ben Shalom Bernanke, chairman of the board of governors of the Federal Reserve, Jewish. Jeffrey Liebman, Jewish. Ronald Klein, Jewish. Jared Bernstein, Jewish. James Steinberg, Jewish. Jacob J. Lew, Jewish. Robert Froman, Jewish, etc., 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 etc. A list of Obama's ties to influential Jews include Henry Kissinger, etc., 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 etc. And then I quoted Isaiah, and kings shall be thy nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face toward the earth, and lick up the dust of thy feet. So our leaders are servants for them as part of this 2,500-year-old plan to exterminate us. Thou hast made me the head of the heathen, a people whom I have not known shall serve me. They'll be the servants of David HaMelech, King David, Messiah, son of David, king of the whole earth, ruling from Jerusalem. I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen, and I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them and the horse. You can see how I was quoting biblical quotes all the time. A lot of people copy that from me today, 3540. So that was part one that I went over as I was releasing part two. I talked about Emma Goldman, the famous Obama's road to the Senate and the White House was paved with bankers, including Jack Ryan and Blair Hall, as well as Goldman Sachs and others. So why isn't Trump going after Goldman Sachs and all the bankers who got Obama into office? Why doesn't that discussion ever come up? So I guess I provided, you can see how all this was censored August 10th, 2009, for ostriches who deny that bankers and Jews are behind communism. Wipe the sands from your eyes and take a look at Barack Obama. Barack Obama is clearly a Marxist, and he was supported by the bankers. And they have this myth that they say it's a canard. How can the Jewish bankers support both capitalism and communism? They don't support them sincerely. They utilize both to destroy Gentile nations. And they backed communist Barack Obama. So unfortunately, I can't show you the videos, but I can show you transcript of the second video. Okay, so that was the transcript of the second video where I simply went over all the things that I had discussed in the first video. Again, this archive of my blog posts is a tremendous resource that everyone should have, that plagiarists have been ripping me off from for decades, together with my book, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein, which I put out as a PDF for free in 2006. These are both compendiums of insights and knowledge that I uniquely presented to the world for free. You can search them for keywords and you will be amazed. And I have thousands, tens of thousands of valuable references that I presented to the world to try to save the world. I'm still on this mission. I want to thank my contributors who enabled me to do this. If you would like to contribute, I have Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal and cryptocurrency links at my website, CJBbooks.com. You can find my book, The Manufacture and Sale of St. Einstein, at my website. And I really do want to thank the wonderful people who have helped me to do this. And I hope everyone watching this is as grateful to them as I am, because I wouldn't be doing this without their support. And please do consider contributing so I can do more of this work and do it better. You have no idea the headwinds and hurdles I face getting these facts out to you. It's just something to do with Goldman Sachs. I think that sums all that up. So now we have been talking about the Democrats and Obama's ties to Goldman Sachs, but they play both sides of the field. And they are this hype to get Obama into a military tribunal to outrage Democrats, I think could be part of a plan to set it up so that Democrats concede and go along with the option or possibility of Trump illegally running for a third term in violation of the Constitution of the United States in hope that they can shoehorn Barack Obama in another time. With this fight between Goldman Sachs affiliated people so that Goldman Sachs wins no matter who wins, the bankers win no matter who wins, and there are no government investigations of the bankers chasing out everything that went down and prosecuting people and punishing people for everything that has gone down throughout the entire history of the United States. Eustace Mullins, who I spoke to a few times, wrote a tremendous book, The Secrets of the Federal Reserve, which spells all that out. And, what's the name of it? It escapes me. The Money Masters video also does a really good job of documenting all that history, but I don't recommend the solutions that they give at the end of that video. So let's look at some of these money masters. Steve Bannon, Trump's mouthpiece and megaphone, who was very loyal to Trump and stumped for Trump. Bannon was an officer in the United States Navy between 1977 and 1983, then worked for 2 years at Goldman Sachs as an investment banker. So why don't you give us all your insights into investment banking and the Jews involved in investment banking, Mr. Bannon? Don't just go after the Zionists and Jeffrey Epstein and all that, which is so important. It's also important to go after Wall Street and your old buddies in the investment banking community. And then there was Trump's man, Steven Mnuchin. Mnuchin was born in New York City upon graduating from Yale University in 1985. Mnuchin joined the investment bank Goldman Sachs, where his father, Robert Mnuchin, was a general partner. Mnuchin worked at Goldman Sachs for 17 years, eventually becoming its chief information officer. After he left Goldman Sachs in 2002, he worked for and funded several hedge funds and launched Dune Entertainment, 20th Century Fox. We also have Steve Bannon from Goldman Sachs, who was an executive producer on 18 Hollywood films. Isn't that an interesting coinkadink? So all these coincidences, all of them funneling back to Goldman Sachs and the big Jewish bankers who've been involved in American politics for centuries, corrupting American politics to favor them, getting off scot-free whenever there are investigations. The end result is that they get bailed out, and the American taxpayer foots the bill for all the crimes they committed against America. So let's have that. If you want to have military tribunals of Barack Obama, I couldn't care less. If ultimately Trump, Clinton, Obama all end up in jail, I think that would be a blessing for America if justice is done. But let's also have some justice done and do some investigations into the bankers and the blackmail and the campaign contributions. Let's focus on that as we continue to focus on Jeffrey Epstein and the sexual blackmail that's being done to American politicians, influencers, and this PSYOP media that they run, so that we're always trying to get this false dialectic of Republicans and Democrats at one another. But guess who wins either way every time? I want to thank everyone for watching. I do think that's what's going on. They're going to float this idea of Trump running in 2028 and try to create this phony cage match between Obama and Trump, et cetera. It's just one of the games that they're playing. It may die out, but it's something to get us fighting each other. And this also plays into the race war narrative that they've been ginning up that I was talking about back in 2006. And so if any of these people are sincere, let's bring the bankers back into all this. And let's not do it so that they can institute reforms of the Federal Reserve to put something even worse in place. Let's do it in a way where we can get independent presidential and congressional candidates into office so that we can have a real investigation of the investigators, so that we can investigate the Democratic and Republican parties, which are puppet parties and a fifth column and a Trojan horse for the bankers and the Zionists and for organized world Jewry. And let's start doling out some punishment and disincentivizing these crimes against us and seize control over our fate, get all these people out of power, and stop pretending that either Obama or Trump are there to save us. I again want to thank my contributors. Please visit my website, CJBbooks.com, my social media on Twitter, Instagram, BitChute, YouTube, Odysee, and Rumble is all under the channel name CJB Books, and you can find me there. Please like, share, and subscribe. Spread the word about my work, and I will see all you great and wonderful people next time. Thank you so much to my contributors. Beware the world to come. Goodbye for now.